Welcome back to Unmasking the Trans Movement with Jon Uhler. I'm your host, Brad Wilder. Today on the show, a great program lined up. Jon is with us. Let's bring Jon into the program right now. Jon, I know that you've got a great show all ready for us today, and let's talk about our special guest, shall we?
Brad, we have Ute Heggen, a tremendous wealth of information, a resource, and a woman who has been through what few understand, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, what are called trans widows. There's other terms, grass widows, I've been learning. But what we're all about here on Unmasking the Trans Movement is helping people understand not just the quote-unquote special interests. We should start calling them the dark special interests that are feeding off the carcasses of these kids. That sounds graphic, but people need to understand that there are special interests, and they're not special, they're evil, that are trying to exploit and take advantage of the most vulnerable among us, including both minors and women. One of the victims, one of the survivors, one of the populations that no one thinks of in a way, because we don't hear of them, and we need to understand the fallout of this movement, of those that are pushing this grand scheme, what I call it's the world's largest predatory and non-psychological scam, scheme, and deception called the trans movement, is harming people. And one of the groups of people that no one is talking about, that we have to talk about, are the spouses and the kids of adults, typically men, though there are some women that have left their marriages as well. But predominantly it's going to be men who have, they're trying to spin themselves, and we're going to unmask them as well in terms of what the real etiology, the origin of this is, but it's essentially and always and inevitably pornography. These are deviant men that have begun dressing in women's underwear and drag, that little by little behind the scenes, they are porn saturated and therefore become deviant and therefore become unfaithful, and they will end up harming emotionally their spouses, their wives, and their children. And Uta is one of those, and she is a wealth of information. I'm so excited. We are excited to have her on the program, because she's going to not only briefly talk about her experience, but also she will be speaking to those that have been harmed, including the extended family. There are so many people that are being harmed by this. Uta, welcome to the program. I want you to, I'm excited that you're here, that we connected. I couldn't be any more thrilled.
Well, thank you. And, I reached out to you. You were kind enough to have some kind of website, and I was able to email you. And I just very much appreciate what you're doing and the way you are putting yourself out there as a professional in the mental health field. I am, the surviving ex-wife from a story that dates back way to 1992. And this is my book.
There you go. Please do. Let's talk about your books. Listen, here it is. We're going to recommend this.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Yes, tell us about your books. And yes. You have a blog. You have a website. Tell us about those.
Yes. So I published this book in the Curated Woods, True Tales from a Grass Widow, which I paid a great publisher company, iUniverse, to publish with 50 of my nature photos, because at least half of the book is my focus on healing out in nature. And I saw that I needed this myself, even all these years later, because with the stress of the narcissistic abuse that my then husband did to me, foisted on me, I got post-traumatic stress disorder, classic problems, chest pain, the panic attacks. I had some digestive problems, just kind of the classic PTSD constellation of symptoms. And I was able in the last couple of years to work on this property that I bought after I retired from teaching early grade science in kindergarten and pre-K. And I was able to just kind of focus on myself finally. And I started a WordPress blog, which is called Ute Heggen grasswidow.wordpress.com. The reason I put in the term grass widow is because I was afraid that trans widow, which is a term that's been developed for us ex-wives, I was afraid that some trans activist trolls would get my book booted off of the platforms like Amazon and Barnes and Noble, which you can order both the ebook and the soft cover from. And so I am just kind of staying a little bit under the radar with this very old term. Goes the probably original citation of it is from 1528. It's been used in both Christian and Jewish literature traditions, meaning a wife who does not live with her husband. We can imagine all the different reasons, but for some reason, a wife is not living with her husband, but is not becoming a prostitute, is not becoming a victim in a way. She is living independent somewhere, supporting herself. And this term, grass widow, was, I believe, a term of respect because she is living alone like a widow. And there was really no divorce in ancient times. So this is why I chose the term True Tales from a Grass Widow for the subtitle of my book. There are plenty of people who said you should have just named your book Trans Widow or something like that, but I really was afraid of the ideology and how my book might get banned or sidelined or something like that. And what I'm hoping is that it'll be a sleeper. I see it as potentially being, something that once when we've seen this bloated ideology crash, I think we could have a Hollywood movie. I'm going to say, who do you want to play you? The other thing I started recently was Ute Heggen YouTube channel. So that's Ute Heggen is a pen name that I use for writing about these matters of being the ex-wife of a man who's done this. And so UTE, last name Heggen. And it just came to me one day, as all good thoughts, all my good ideas come to me when I'm working in the garden or when I'm outside in the curated woods, where I'm curating out the weeds and curating in the wildflowers. And actually, my YouTube channel has a lot of nature shorts. I have a lot of beautiful 18-second clips of butterflies. And I also have started a wellness movement playlist on my YouTube channel because I really see the need for combining somatic movement to combat grief and trauma and PTSD kind of symptoms. And so I have for myself a whole scheduled really of I go out walking with the Nordic sticks, which are kind of like the ski poles. And I do my stretches and my movement playlist and eat well. And it's very important, I think, when you've been through the kind of unusual trauma that I have, to go through a process of writing it down. If you don't write it down or do some journaling with it, then it's going to run around in the back of your head like a broken record. It's painful to go through that writing process. I shed a lot of tears when I wrote my book, but I also have many, many really beautiful hobby to develop if you're wanting to move towards wellness. And, you know, one of the things that I never understood when I started going through this was 1992. Our children were 1 and 4, and I discovered my husband's 3 big sketchbooks that he had filled, diaries about his cross-dressing activities. And it was quite a moment of discovery. One thing I've talked about with other trans widows is typically there's either a moment of discovery, some shock, you're finding underwear that you know that you don't own somewhere hidden in a closet in your home, or he's made some announcement. And so there's either a revelation or a discovery. For me, it was a discovery. And at one point when he was, you know, saying, yes, I'm going to go down this road, he told me about this psychologist named Dr. Ray Blanchard and the Blanchard protocols and the whole process that had been, you know, choreographed for men who ideate a female persona. And I was told at that point that it would take 2 years before he would get the letter and do surgeries and stuff like that. And being the, you know, hopeful person that I am, I kind of hoped that, at least for his own sake. I mean, we were separated and getting a divorce by that point. There was no going back with that. But I hoped that for his sake, that he would just change his mind and not do these really, really dangerous surgeries.
And for the sake of your kids. This is the father of your children.
2 sons.
Right? Your sons. And so that's why, Uta, your story is so powerful. As a matter of fact, let me also make a pitch for, you were recently on with Aaron Brewer,
Yes.
Advocates Protecting Children. Your extended story is you were interviewed, you gave an extended background. I really want to encourage people to go on to see that YouTube interview. They can go to your YouTube because that provides even more. You go into more background that we don't have time to today. You're doing
Yes.
fine. Your story is so compelling, but that's why you're here, because the unsung victims, and you use the term PTSD. I am a certified trauma professional, clinical trauma professional. You are using it appropriately. That is what is so diabolical. Because here we have these guys that start cross-dressing. Any man that cross-dresses is more than likely wearing women's underwear. In my background dealing with sex offenders, men that have violated others, men that have, and also I work with sex addicts. By the time a man is wearing women's underwear, and it's so telling, as you said, oftentimes wives will find underwear that is not theirs. That means they've got some other woman's underwear. And what comes to mind is Sam Britton, who was stealing a woman's luggage for what? For the underwear. If anybody wants to debate me on that, come on our program. So this is absolutely traumatizing. Can you imagine a wife? I'm going to tell your story in this sense. You're a wife, you think things are okay, and you find a pair of women's underwear.
Right.
And then your world is starting to come down, and you have kids, and their world's going to come down. We're not going to allow the pushers of the trans movement, and we're not anti anybody. We are pro the protection of women and children. And this is one of the greatest ways we can protect women and children and families, is to help shine the light on the reality that this is deviance. These men are deviant. They do not deserve our sympathies. They need to be told, listen, you have issues, that's fine. We all have issues. But it is time to man up, to abide by your promises, just because we're not going to give somebody a pass because they're deviant. We're going to tell them, work out your issues, do it in a clinical setting, but do no harm. And just because you want to go find yourself is no excuse for you to impact a marriage and a family. And then they waltz out of this family, and leaving in their wake are shattered lives and extended family. And so there's no way, and this is what part of what we're about, is we are not going to allow the pushers of the trans deception, the trans movement, to flip sympathies, to place sympathies on these deviant men when the people that deserve our sympathies are the wives and the kids and the extended family. And so that's why I'm so appreciative of. And it is traumatizing. Your world was ripped apart, and then even worse, because the man you thought you knew, some of you didn't even know.
It's a strange feeling that when you don't know him. I mean, it reminds me, I have a friend actually whose husband was a bigamist. He had a second family, and he suddenly brought his son, who was in his teens, and he brought his son from the other marriage to meet his wife and the children he had with her, and he thought that it's sort of a similar thing, like he's out in La La Land. He doesn't understand what kind of immoral behavior he's been engaging in because he's a narcissist. And it took years for her to get divorced from him.
Sorry.
And it is kind of the same thing. It's as if your husband has been conducting another separate life, secret from you. And what's happened with the attitude that you're talking about that's been promoted, where these people are stunning and brave, and let's give them the pink mist and the glitter and all this. Suddenly they're heroes because they are seeking their true selves. And he was going to a psychologist. He went to a PhD psychologist, and he also went to a non-certified groomer. That's sort of the other piece of this trans world, is that there are a lot of people jumping on this bandwagon who are pretending that they have credentials and they don't have any credentials. And
Uta, they have an agenda. As a matter of fact,
exactly
to that, we won't reference the so-called professional's name. But we're tempted to. This is a clinician in private practice still that, quite frankly, destroyed your life.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes.
So speak to an agenda-driven, and it's interesting because what we are taught, those of us that are in the mental health field, the one thing that is drilled in time and time again is, and it's part of the ethical code, that we are not to influence. Okay? Mm-hmm. And it's true. What you do, right? Because you're not supposed to live my life, right? Right? Therapy is all about helping you heal, helping someone get in touch with their true values, to be able to do values clarification. And that's why it's a misnomer, this conversion therapy. What therapist, but isn't it interesting? These therapists, what I say, the agenda-driven ones, so speak to your experience, because they are violating everything any decent therapist in any kind of grad school has been told, which is this: you are not to influence or sanction or promote any kind of, that's not our role. Yet these guys are seeking out, or including these confused kids, are finding themselves sitting in front of agenda-driven professionals that influence. Well, when has that ever been acceptable? Suddenly it's now acceptable to influence. So give your experience, speak to that briefly. What happened when you thought you were going to sit in front of a professional individual and she destroyed your world, in essence, because of her agenda?
Right. Yes. Well, my sense, there are a few things that, I don't know for sure. For example, I'm sort of assuming that when he went to this PhD psychologist, that he was in drag, that he was wearing makeup and dressed like a woman, and it was his agenda for her to affirm him and say, oh yeah, you passed, look at, oh, nice colors, and oh, I see your fingernail polish, and all this kind of stuff. And the thing is, that is not what the point should be of that initial intake, session. And the thing is, I know that she diagnosed him in the first initial intake. She diagnosed him as a transsexual. That's the terminology from then. This was, and because the reason I know it is because she wrote it in a sworn affidavit submitted into our custody case.
So she had no idea. So the first session, she diagnoses this guy, yet she doesn't know whether or not she's being played.
Exactly.
He likely has, I'll say it, he likely has a personality disorder that's then manifesting itself. He's working people, yet she diagnoses him as having a sexual disorder, as it were.
Yes.
When in reality, he's a narcissist.
Yes, yes. Now, there are a couple of interesting things that we can try to unspool later on. Now, I don't know very much about a porn addiction or that kind of involvement, because this is going back. We met in the late 1970s and then got engaged and lived with each other before we got married in 1978. And we were both in college doing undergraduate degrees, and we didn't have a TV. And we had a small one-bedroom apartment, and people are clever. They hide things in places. So there's things that I might not have discovered. I did not know about any cross-dressing on his part. And I never saw, say, a Hustler magazine or print porn. We didn't have a TV. I know that there were a couple of, sleazy movie houses in Madison, Wisconsin, where I guess he could have gone and watched stuff when I was working or something like this. We were both working our way through college. And we had this connection with what was called international folk dancing. That's how we met. And we were very, very busy, which is, it's interesting for me to look back on that. It's all this Bulgarian, Scandinavian, South African, Swedish, French. It's all Morris dancing, all different kinds of folk ethnic dance we were doing, and as as hobbies, and actually he and I had a performing group too, and so we were very, very busy. And during that time, I didn't have an indication of any of this going on. And in fact, it's interesting because at the point of discovery, the 1992 discovery, I said to him, I feel like our life together has been some kind of play acting, and, for the whole time, were you just wishing that you were me or something? And he said to me, no, it came and went. I didn't feel it that strongly all the time. Now, I don't think he ever said that to the groomer and the PhD sexologist that he went to, because his goal, I believe, was the holy grail of the letters, and to go through with a sex change operation. Part of me says perhaps he was just really a bisexual or gay man. Later on, there was one incident that happened where I thought maybe he had been involved in some kind of homosexual, contretemps, because there was someone who accosted us once. This is going back to, 1983 or something. But he spurned this guy and said, it's a mistaken identity. I never saw you before. We're in Manhattan. And, it's something that I just dismissed. We're both redheads. My hair is sort of getting white now, so I guess it looks kind of blonde. But, in Manhattan, that was kind of unusual. So he just said, somebody sees a redhead, they think they know him if they know another redhead, right? But then in 1992, when I'm reading these diaries about his, visits to bars in Greenwich Village on 8th Street, I thought, that thing happened about 10 years ago. I wonder what that means. I mean, I thought I had forgotten it, right? So there's all these things about your past when your husband has been deceiving you that you really feel like, wow, I don't know my own life, right? Like my life has become this shell. Like he's trying to hollow out the shell of our lives and insert, some other picture. And one of the reasons he went to this groomer, the one I did meet, whom I call Ruth the Charlatan in my book, I did speak to her on the phone once in the fall of 1992, and then in the spring of 1995, when it was really all over, I went there. And I mean, she had no credentials. To the best of my recollection, she was the wife of an endocrinologist. So it's like, oh, I'm creating the channel so you can have more business. I thought of yesterday, I was thinking about this. Yesterday, I said to myself, oh my goodness, if only I had figured out reporting her to the IRS because she only took cash. Maybe I could have reported her to the IRS and she and her husband would have been in big trouble, and she's probably gone now, this is a long time ago. But I mean, I have stories about, see, what was interesting is she became this triangulation vector because when I went to her, it was to say to her, I want you to know from me, from Uta, from the horse's mouth, I'm plain Jane, the girl next door. My name is Jan Jansen. I come from Wisconsin. That's me. I'm not going to do all these different things that Nettie is coming home from your session trying to persuade me to do. And she was like Bob Barker on The Price is Right or something, like, well, you could open this door and then you'll buy the sex toys and then you'll watch these shows. But see, he wasn't doing that. I never, unlike many trans widows who have just, the psychological manipulations of doing uncomfortable sex role play is really despicable. I think he knew that I'm a dancer. I know. I was dancing for 14 years. I was never attracted to the beautiful, beautiful women. I was in top dance classes in New York, the Paul Taylor Company, Merce Cunningham's company, Bill T. Jones, all these at the time, top modern dance companies were in the same technique classes as me. I'm not attracted to women. And this Nettie story that he has about how I actually should realize deep down I'm a lesbian because he's a woman. So, and I've been with him all this time saying I love him. And I was like, okay, I have to go to this lady. She has to hear it from the whole horse's mouth that you can't work on me. I'm not going to be the gatekeeper to your schedule of, every other weekend you're going to go out cross-dressing, and I'm not going to do this thing where we have a loveless marriage and live in two separate rooms. I mean, we didn't have a big enough place for that anyway. And I mean, she literally, this Ruth, proposed to me that I could take lovers, Nettie wouldn't object to this. And I said, that's not me. I was raised going to church, and then I converted to Judaism. For me, marriage is monogamy. I have lesbian friends who are married. I know I taught the children of a couple of gay guys who were married and stuff like that. But to me, monogamy is two people with one relationship. And so I had to make...
Let me at this point, and it's so compelling, we are up against time. What we're going to do is we're going to have you back.
Oh, thank you.
Multiple times.
Okay.
There's so much in your story. There's so much, you are a wealth of information. We're going to also get into some of the academics.
Yes.
Some of the researchers that you've encountered that I'm familiar with. That'll be extremely compelling. The influences, the things you have gone up against, and what you just shared, which is invaluable for people to understand, is that this movement claims to be sensitive. It claims to be freeing people, when in reality, it's filled with deception. It's filled with agenda-driven pressure that we are going to help unmask, because countless women, countless wives and kids and extended family are being victimized by this. So we're going to stop at this point simply because of time constraints, but we're going to have you back. We're going to pick up right here in your story. And then we're going to start to unpack different facets of this, because you are speaking for those that have been harmed. In about a minute or two, so to speak, given time constraints, give a word of encouragement to those that have been harmed, the ex-spouses, the kids, even the spouse that maybe is now where you were. Give a word of encouragement to them. And then again, tell them where they can find your website, how they can reach out to you as well.
Yes. So my blog is Ute Heggen, Grass Widow, and that's all one word. uteheggengrasswidow.wordpress.com. And there's a contact form. And so you can go through the contact form, and then it will come to my email. And then I have Ute Heggen channel, on which I have started a playlist of trans widows' testimonies. And I'm at this point giving them Shakespearean names. So we've got Ophelia, Juliet, Portia. And there are quite a few stories there. I never had physical violence from my ex, but they're coming up now with some of these other women who were choked. The one thing that I would say is, do not ever allow yourself to be persuaded into uncomfortable sex role exploration that you're being requested to do by a so-called professional and your addled husband. Just say no. Because the thing is, it's likely that you will be putting yourself in danger, either from some kind of kink, BDSM kind of flavor. By the way, I cannot stand the phrase vanilla sex. Good intimacy in a monogamous relationship is not vanilla. And I'm 66 years old, and I believe in wonderful, loving intimacy. So I'm not a prude. But this is how babies are made, you have to remember. And I mean, that's actually a serious problem within this crazy circus world that this has descended into. Some of these girls who think they're boys think they can't get pregnant. So, but I would say to women, be strong. This is going to be hard. Get ready to leave. Get your supports ready. And be ready to just kind of put people who can't be supportive to the side. Find your friends, find your support group. And if you happen to have, a religious tradition that will help you with prayer and with spirituality, it is a very good idea to renew, some of the prayer practices. If you regard yourself as an atheist, you can still have a spiritual life and have faith in your own body. Our human bodies have evolved over millions of years. They are beautiful, pristine vessels, and you need to keep your strength. You need to do everything you can to push off all of the stresses and the potential for PTSD. And, the experts on the trans stuff are just not experts. They're not experts in anything. And I just feel like Richie Herron, a detransitioner, will say, we non-professionals are going to have to do the work. Now, you, John, you're a professional, and so you can help us non-professionals to do the work and validate what we're saying.
Well, that's exactly where the language comes in, and that's exactly what John and I have been exposing and trying to get that message out, that it's a different level of communication here, and that's That's the important part of being able to break this down, understand it fully, and then be able to communicate in a way with other people who are pushing this ideology on to others. And I think that in the end result, we become stronger as individuals in that communication process. And the only way through this is going to be through communication. It's not going to be about battling. It's not going to be about when you bring in the mental health aspect of it, that's communication. That's where we're openly having that direct dialogue. And that's what this show is all about. So thank you very much for coming on today, Uta. Can't say enough about having you here. Thank you so much. Jon, always a pleasure to have you on the show as well. Any final words from you today, Jon?
I'm just appreciative that Uta is willing to come on. We need to be able to help people understand that the trans movement is really the trans deception. The pushers of it is harming people. It is taking advantage and exploiting the most vulnerable, and we are here to unmask that in order ultimately to set people free.
Unmasking the Trans Movement with Jon Uhler. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you again next time. I'm Brad Wilder. Till then.